Good morning, listeners. Another great warm welcome, Mayfair, here in downtown Mayfair, to Simon Dodson. It's Expense Reduction Analysts is the company that Simon works with, and I'd like to ask Simon, first of all, thank you for coming in today, and could you give us a bit of background into you and your background and what it is that you do?
Super, thanks. Well, good morning back to you, Michael.
Thank you.
So, and lovely to be here and to learn a little bit about this room as well. It's a fantastic room. So, hi, I'm Simon Dodson from ERA. I like to shorten it to ERA,
Fantastic.
Just sort of keeps it simple. But I've been with them for 11 years. And I'm principal consultant there, and my role really is to sort of talk to people and explain about what we do and the benefits that we can bring to organisations.
What is that? What is it that you do?
Procurement.
Procurement.
We're a procurement consultancy, and procurement has really changed its name, I think, in the recent years. It used to be sort of a bit of a frowned and dirty word, because actually to procure means to source ladies of the night. That's
really?
its historical significance. We don't do that. We don't do ladies of the night.
Wrong podcast.
Wrong podcast. Our role is to work with our clients and to achieve. It sounds a bit. I don't know. The word is value. If you talk about value, right, it means lots of things to different people. And to us, it means not just about a cost reduction. We are a cost reduction company. It doesn't mean just about cost reduction. It means about the services. It means about the quality. It means about meeting the needs of the organisation. And it's a little bit difficult to grasp sometimes because everyone goes on about buying or purchasing. Everyone can buy. Everyone can purchase something. But can everyone procure? Can everyone really use procurement as a strategic goal for a business, rather than a function of just buying something that they need? Because procurement is more about, we see it as a strategy that will use it to for our clients to be able to make their business as attractive as possible to the supply chain.
Okay.
So when you talk about when I talk to clients, they say, we get 3 bids in, we get 3 quotes for everything that we do. Effectively, you're spot buying.
Okay.
Right? And you're just buying what the market is offering on you on that date. Right? And it's a bit like, if I was saying to you, how do you go about buying? You'd say, well, I've got these suppliers, I go to them, and I say, I've got this job, I want to be able to sort of, I need this, it needs to be done there, and that's all good, but you just get a price of the day. We like to take a broader view and say, actually, you need to make your business as attractive as possible to that supplier, so you bring in as much value to the supplier as to yourself.
Okay. So
So instead of bidding for £10,000 worth of business, you could be bidding for £100,000 worth of business or £1 million worth of business. And that's sort of we're an initial starting point of just trying to frame how you would make your business more attractive to the suppliers to encourage the best price.
that's really interesting and a great explanation of the process. What I'd like to do is take you back, and I don't know how many years we're going to go back, but can you tell us a little bit about your journey, how you got to today? So how you got into this, what experience you've got, because our listeners are all about understanding the journey, wanting to know about you, about your experiences and how you got to here.
Okay. Well, we said earlier, I've actually worked in advertising for 25 years, and I started in production and then worked up into account management, got to sort of board director level in agencies, and then we got to 2008, and it got quite a difficult period in advertising, and I lost my job a couple of times through the sort of the recession that came out of it. And in truth, I was in my 40s at that point, and I was getting a bit old for advertising. So it gave me that chance to sort of think about, okay, what am I going to do for the rest of my career?
Is that how you felt?
Yeah.
You felt that you were too old for that industry?
Yeah. I would go for interviews in agencies, and I'd be looking around and go, 20, 25, 23.
Wow.
And the people who were interviewing me were younger than me, and I just thought, I can't do this anymore. And
So you had some knockbacks. You had lots of interviews where they said no, not for us.
Yeah, I never even got past the first interview stage.
Wow.
Right, and I think because actually looking back at it now, I didn't quite see it myself, but I saw that there's a guy who realises he doesn't want to be in advertising anymore.
Okay.
Right, there was the enthusiasm gone, the sparkle had gone, because that's what advertising.
And you
is.
think that those people interviewing could see that?
I think
feel
so.
it?
Yeah, I think so.
That's interesting, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, and so it gave me a chance to sort of reflect and think, okay, what can I do? And I started looking at buying businesses and applying for jobs. There weren't. But you think about 2011, it was a tough time.
It was a very tough time,
and the opportunities weren't really there. And I came across ERA, and I thought, my God, I can do that. Right? It's about going out and talking to people. It's about procurement. I know advertising and procurement were they're not friends. Right?
Sure.
Advertising is about spending as much money as possible and being as lavish as possible. Procurement was the opposite. and so when I was in advertising, I was like, no, just keep procurement people away from me. Keep procurement away from me. I used to have Tesco was a client of mine, and the procurement guy used to ring me up and said, oh, well, I'm going to get this down to 850 quid. And I was like, but it doesn't cost that. It costs 1,200. Anyway, so I got to the point, I say, where advertising wasn't really sort of a longer term thing for me anymore, and I looked at this, and ERA's model is there's 100 of us in the UK, and there's a bunch of guys who are genuine experts in their categories, right? So if we're talking about cars, I would go to a guy called Sean Bingham, who's the ex-sales director for Lex. Right? And he's spent all his life buying cars and selling cars. Right? So it's not me that I'm selling in terms of a procurement expert, it's this guy. Right? Sure. And then there's banking. I've got Paul Lucraft, who's the ex-general manager of MasterCard. Right? And there's nothing he doesn't know about sending money around this planet. Right? Down to small things like photocopiers. Right? And I've got Andy Kinnear, he's 25 years working for Xerox. Right? So we got all these chaps that can deliver the projects for us, and all I have to do is to sit in front of a client and tell them about them, and say, look, this is what this guy can do for you. And for me, that was that's what I did in advertising, right? Because I'd say, well, I got this creative team here, they did the Renault commercial, these guys over here, we worked on Asda, and so on and so forth. So you have that team behind you, whether it's a digital campaign, direct marketing campaign, I would be able to give them the solution that they're looking for.
So that's really fascinating to understand how you go as a figurehead, but then behind you there's this team of experts, board panel of experts that you can rely on to give that help and advice to the person that you're talking to. How's it been through the pandemic? Has that service that you offer been more in demand, less in demand? Has it hurt business? Can you give us a bit of insight into that?
The beginning of the pandemic was very difficult, principally because everyone didn't know what was going on and everything shut down. And it was difficult from even a client management point of view, because most of my clients were London-based, because I'm London-based. Yeah. Our model is, if we don't save you money, we can't charge you any fees because we work on a share of savings basis. Okay. So if they stop spending money, there's no money to be saved. Right? So if there's no trade coming in, there's no merchant card fees, there's no visitors to attractions, there's no people going on boats. There's all sorts of things that just stopped happening. So business just sort of stopped overnight. Gradually things began to pick up, but working from home, even today, is a challenge, because the workforce is diverse, and if they're not in an office, they're not spending money. Okay. Or you can't talk to them. Okay. Right. So we send out. We talked about direct marketing earlier on. Right. We send out information to prospective clients, and if they're not in the office, they don't get it. You know, you can't ring them up and say, "Hi, can I talk to you about, you know, what it is we're doing?" Well, they're not. They're working at home. So being able to then just to be able to sit in front of someone and talk to them about Sean and Paul and Andy and everybody else was difficult and is difficult. So we looked at education was one of the areas as a sector that had its small closures but continued to function and continued to spend money. So that was quite an interesting area to get involved with for during the course of the pandemic. But gradually things are coming back. Right? Businesses returning, and I've got clients that I started work with in 2014, 2015. I'm doing more work with them now than I was 2 or 3 years ago, which is encouraging.
We were only saying yesterday when we came into central London on the tubes, it feels more hectic, rushed, busy than what it was before that pandemic hit.
Yeah.
Do you feel that that's
I'm going to have to fess, right? This is the first time I've been to London on a commuter train, probably the second or third time in 2 years.
Wow.
Right? My business has transformed, digital transformation, and then everything is done on Teams, on Zoom, on Google Hangouts, and I don't have reason to visit clients.
Can we drill down into that? Because
yeah.
I think the listeners out there will be fascinated to understand that actually what you're saying is that business as it was before the pandemic was healthy. The pandemic came along, it affected the business, but what you've done is you've changed the model of how you work.
Absolutely.
Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. And if you look at the old model, you know, I'd ring you up and say, "Michael, I want to come and talk to you about cost reduction." You say, "Okay, let me look at my diary. I can see you in 3 weeks' time," right? And I go, "Okay, right." So pop along, and I'd drive a couple of hours to come and see you in 3 weeks' time, and then we'd have a second meeting and a third meeting, and then we'd do, "Okay, well, I'm going to get Sean to come and look at my car fleet," right? And then we'll do another meeting. Right? We're now like 3 or 4 months down the road.
Yeah.
Before we've even started anything, right? And then we do a launch meeting, and then we've got to do some analysis, and we're now 6 months down the road, right? That has shrunk massively because I can talk to you tomorrow effectively. I said, I only need half an hour of your time. Let's get on a phone call. Let's get on a Teams call, and we can have the conversation. We'll go. Actually, we need to bring in Sean now, and well, he's free. I know we can do that on Friday. Right? So our project time has massively shrunk, and which is fantastic for clients because actually you look at today's climate, right? If people need to save money, they don't want to wait 6, 9 months, 12 months for that to happen. You know, they want to happen sooner. And if you apply the sort of what I was saying at the start, procurement isn't just about purchasing; it's about making your business as attractive as possible. Instead of that, we've really brought that down into a much shorter time frame, just because I don't need to travel to come and see you anymore.
So actually, your costs...
My costs have gone down.
Your costs have gone down of sale.
Yeah.
Costs of sale have gone down. And their costs should go down because they're doing the cost saving faster.
Yes.
That's a double whammy, isn't it?
Yes.
So the pandemic forced that on us, because you would have just happily have gone on your journey because that's how it was always done.
Correct. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And you think, you know, it's like I would look at my week and I go, I've had a really busy week this week. You know, I've had 3 appointments and a couple of client meetings on this, but I've just been on the road for half the time. Yeah. And I've travelled 2 or 3 hours for an hour's appointment, and I've travelled 2 or 3 hours back and then managed a couple of hours in the office. That's not productive. No. That's not efficient. And so I think that for many businesses, that's the future for quite a while. But if you're a manufacturer, if you're a producer, you know, if you're making stuff, that's not possible.
No.
But there's an inherent benefit for that manufacturer to actually use some of the digitalness of where we've gone to benefit quicker from the services that can be supplied to them.
So the future then, I'm guessing, looks quite rosy.
I think for me personally, and the clients that I managed, it changed last August, September. Right? At that point, so there was about, the last 2 years sort of merge into one big year. I can't quite remember.
It does.
But I think, so 18 months of true graft and worry about it to actually go, right, things are now beginning to happen. So the things that I put in place, recognised that we needed to change, were beginning to bear fruit. And so yes, I'm from work I'm doing with clients, I'm probably back at pre-pandemic levels now.
Really?
Yeah, which is pretty good, right, in terms of this time last year. And just thinking, and that shows you then, that the gestation period between meeting and delivering savings to clients was 6 to 12 months on average, right? And I say now that's down to 3 to 6 months. But it's all about client contracts, obligations. Because I don't want to overpromise people. All right, I'll get Simon in. Right, he can turn it around, and in a few weeks we're going to have this. And you go, well, actually, but you're in a contract there for the next 2 years, so we can't actually touch that. So it's still a lot of that to unravel, to see that a client, what their obligations are before you can start saving money.
And right now, if you were to say what was the hot topic, the area that is at the moment giving you most demand?
Logistics, so parcel delivery in the UK. I mean, it's edged off a bit since the pandemic levels of everyone being at home, taking parcels from Amazon and DVD and everything. But there's still a lot of trade out there. So that's interesting. Merchant card fees, again. And there's real interest now because of Brexit. Right, if I can mention the B word. We said no B word, didn't we, earlier on? Because of Brexit, there are a lot of changes to the charges, interchange rates and such, and mostly upwards. So helping client mitigate some of those changes, but also showing them new innovative solutions that are available that they're not even aware of. So, the terminal, you go into a shop and you tap your card and then that. If you can do away with all of that, so you don't actually have any terminal, don't have any contactless payments. It's all done by open banking or something like that. There are sort of new solutions that we can help introduce to clients. It's perceived to be a lot of the time that what we do is just a sort of unit cost reduction, right? It's like instead of it being £10 to do this trade, we can do it for £8, right? And there's your saving. But actually, it might be stop doing that, start doing this, and there's a completely different way of doing something. And that's much more interesting for both the client and for us.
So if a client was going along their daily routine with their business, because most business owners and controllers are in it, not on it, and they were looking at their business today, what I think you're saying is that actually having a conversation with you for you to visit them and actually just observe their business for a short period of time, you could probably come up with lots of different areas, different ways to help them that they wouldn't have even thought about. And that's a key message, isn't it, I think, from today, that our listeners, they might be in their jobs, they might be director or the owner of the business or managers that are creating great value for their companies. They won't know necessarily where there could be savings. So how do they get hold of you? How do they contact you to be able to set up a meeting so that you could come in and help them? How would that work?
Okay, well, I think there's two answers to this question. The first is how do they get hold of me? So I'm on LinkedIn, so Simon Dodson, Expense Reduction Analyst. My mobile number's at the top there. Our website is expensereduction.com. If you go onto there and if you Google a consultant, you can find me. Google, just search on the use the search bar, and you can find me there. But I think the other interesting aspect of the question was like, how did they know what to do?
Yes.
Doing this job 11 years, I talked to a lot of companies, right? And I can talk to two companies that on the face of it look identical, but underneath they're completely different.
Really?
And so the challenges that one faces would be completely different to another because they've got they've got different staff, they've got different resources, they've got different expertise. And so what one might need is Sean or Paul or Andy or Sue or whatever it may be, the other one won't. And so really my job is just to help them find out where they may need help. Right? So it's just being able to offer a neutral eye over their expenditure. Say, what have you done about this? What have you done about that? Have you thought about talking to these guys about doing this? And my role isn't to convince them to use ERA.
No.
My role is just to convince them to think that they can do something better.
That's the value add that
Yes.
you're giving
Yes.
to that business. I can come in. I'm guessing you're very discreet in terms of being in that business at that time and then looking around.
Yeah.
You've got that nose
Yeah.
that smells,
Yeah.
sniffs out those cost savings.
Yeah. It's the one disadvantage of not being on site is that the sniffing around isn't really possible. You know, unless you pick up your camcorder and check with it. But the advantage for me, I know what, if I'm talking to a manufacturer, I know what their costs are going to be. I know they're going to be talking about waste. They're going to be talking about consumables, engineering consumables, plastic, packaging. You know, all of those type of things. But if I'm talking to a school, it's going to be photocopiers and consumables and utilities. Right? And we talked about utilities before. People think I can save them lots of money on utilities. Right? I want to explain that it's a myth.
Okay.
Right? I've got clients who are renewing this year in September, and their utility bills are going to be 3 times higher, 2 to 3 times higher. Right? They're going to go from 500,000 to 1.5 million.
Good grief.
And there's nothing they can do about it. Right? They're going to have to pay it. Right? So my job isn't about saying I can save you a few pounds, a couple of £100,000 on the utilities, because I can't.
No.
Right? That's the market.
No. Okay.
Right? My job is saying, actually, instead of...
And is there a lot of wasted time of people contacting you saying, can you do something for me in this area? And then you say, well, no, I can't. And that's a wasted... or you're happy for the conversation?
I'm happy for the conversation because then you say, well, actually, there's nothing you can do about it. What we need to do is find savings elsewhere to mitigate those increases that you're going to have. Right? There has been, I think most clients are now waking up to it, but there has been a degree of it'll be okay. Right? By the time I get to renewal, the market will come down a bit. Right?
Okay.
And it's a little bit head in the sand stuff.
Okay.
Right? So you need to be aware of it, and you need to see what's happening. The market isn't changing anytime soon. If you look at the sort of long-term trends, 24-month contracts versus 12-month contracts versus 6-month contracts, they're pretty stable. So we're in for a bit of a... we haven't really seen this business shock yet because lots of clients, they're in a 12, 24-month contract, and therefore these price increases haven't impacted on the bottom line. Yeah. And if £1 million is just going to be written off overnight, it's staggering.
Wow. I know that a lot of our listeners out there are people who are actively searching all kinds of media, all channels, to try to help them in their day-to-day work, in their day-to-day businesses. You could say that by coming onto podcasts like this, you're delivering so much value because it might be something that one of the listeners has not thought about.
Yeah.
And that's exactly why we bring this. We're trying to give a diverse message, diverse industries, to help business owners and controllers to help their businesses. And the fact that you're here today talking about some of those issues, the utilities is a fascinating one, but what you're saying is across business, in other parts of the businesses, there could well be lots of savings that can mitigate those that you can't save against.
Yes.
Are there any sort of immediate, quick fire, snapshot, hooks, any kind of quick wins that somebody today listening might think, actually, if I look at this one area, I'm telling you it's a good area to have a look at to start with?
I would like to say yes, but I think I'd be misleading you slightly.
Okay.
Only because a school is so different to a manufacturer, that's so different to a business in London, a professional services firm. The real benefit is just looking at their purchase ledger and looking at about where their costs are and saying, well, actually, look, you're spending £100,000 in this area. What are you doing? Right? What resources have you got available to you? When was the last time you reviewed it? And what were the results of that? And if the client's prepared to be open and honest and share, and we said, well, look, this could be, if we could find a 20 or 30% saving out of that, is that going to be significant enough for you? No? What would you do with the money?
Yeah, sure.
So there isn't one thing, and I'm always very clear with my clients as well that I tell them whether I can help them or not. So there are, well, we don't tend to focus on core costs. So agri-feed, wheat and stuff like that. If a client is buying that, you've got to think they're going to be pretty good at buying it.
Yeah, sure.
Because that's their core business, right?
Sure.
What they might not be so good at is the building that they're in,
Yeah.
the cars that they drive, the pens that they write with. And so that's, we look at what we call the indirect costs and focus on those areas because most businesses are set up. One of my clients is a £200 million greengrocer, right? They're pretty good at buying green grocery stuff, but I can help them with all their other bits that they don't buy on a part of their core cost, their regular buying.
I'd like to just sort of look at an area which is to do with the business and you being part of a team, a wider team. Team engagement and retention for businesses is a real hot potato at the moment in terms of, this is where companies are struggling to keep staff. How's your business doing in terms of retention of staff and mental health and well-being and the ability to help those team members on a day-to-day basis look after themselves whilst they're hopefully delivering service to their business?
So we're predominantly a home working business.
Okay.
We're about 100 strong. Right?
Okay.
So we get people join and people leave as per normal. We suffered with the pandemic, and we used to regularly meet. Right? Part of working from home is that you don't get out enough, right?
Sure.
In terms of discussing stuff with your colleagues. So we'd meet on a monthly, a quarterly, annually basis, right? London would meet as a group, then South East would meet as a group, and then nationally you'd meet as a group. And clearly that all stopped during the pandemic. And our head office has been very keen to sort of get those things going. And we actually met up in March, 27th of March.
As a full business?
As a full business. And that was the first time in a couple of years. It was very odd.
Was it really?
No,
yeah.
I mean, it was odd for me because it's like, God, I'm standing here, we're talking to people again.
Yeah, sure.
And it was really nice actually just to, we had a good day, sharing experiences and just talking about product developments and stuff. And then we had dinner and we had Eddie the Eagle. Do you remember Eddie the Eagle? I sat next to him at dinner, right? And so we had a good chat. He's quite a diminutive character. He's really quite small, but you can sort of see how he flew down the mountains. But his story was one of hope and just an absolute belief that he could do what he did. And it really changed my opinion of him from the character that you saw on the telly in the 80s and 90s. Anyway, I digress, don't I? I talk about Eddie the Eagle.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So we're now much more looking to come together. We meet regularly, and I work in a group, but where we talk to each other almost every day, and rather than ringing people up, we just do Teams calls with each other because actually sitting there in your office can be quite lonely. But if you suddenly got someone looking at you, it's like it's the old standing over the desk having a chat type of conversation.
Water cooler moment.
Exactly. So we do a lot of that, and you go, what's up with you today?
We all need that.
Yes, yeah.
So important.
Yeah, I feel quite lucky in that my other half also works from home. So if I was in my house on my own all day, I think that would be quite lonely.
Yeah.
So and my kids are grown up. One of them was working from home. She's now got a new job, so she leaves at 9 o'clock in the morning, back at 7, which she's finding very different, very strange. And the other one I mentioned earlier on, she's on the stage. So she has periods where she's never around and periods where she's always around.
Of course.
So there's always something happening.
Nature of that industry.
Yeah.
Sam, it's been wonderful speaking to you this
Lovely
morning.
to see you.
Is there anything that we've missed that our viewers and listeners could look for that you think you've missed?
Give you my mobile number, 07957 984 800.
Fantastic. So, thank you, Simon,
Pleasure.
for coming into our offices in Mayfair, and until next time.